All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Adam. We really appreciate having you on. We're excited to learn a little bit more about you at Bonaventures and some of your other partnerships and programs. I know you're involved in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for the invite. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our first question, you are in a pretty competitive space. How does your team go about gaining new clients, new partnerships, and what's working for you best right now?
Sure, absolutely. So actually, our primary organization is Intraverbal AI. So we're really in the AI space inside the ABA space, which means we're in the artificial intelligence inside the applied behavior analysis space. And as you pointed out, ABA has become much more competitive, especially over the course of the last 5 to 10 years since the insurance mandates came out. And yeah, things are much more competitive amongst behavior analysts, private equity, and all of the folks that are working in our space. And AI is all the rage right now. So between those two things overlapping, it certainly makes for an exciting workday every day. I would say that.
I bet it does. I bet it does. What is working for you best in actually acquiring new clients in the space?
In reference to acquiring clients, so we're really we're in a new space. So artificial intelligence is a new space and it's new for everybody right now, but everybody's excited about it and everybody is using some form of it right now. And most people have good experiences with it. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, these are not perfect systems, but for the most part, a lot of people use them because they're useful in some way to people's professional and personal lives. So, in reference to getting new clients, people are interested. I think there's a mystery element to what we do. People want to know how we're blending applied behavior analysis and artificial intelligence together. So they'll at least try out a free version of our system. And then most people that try out the free version of our system end up with the paid version of our system because it's unique and it offers them value. It's easy to use. So we hit on all of those points and we're able to convert interest into free sign up into paid sign up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And being able to show the impact of the tool before they have to sign up for a contract is always a huge advantage, which not all softwares can manage, right? So that makes complete sense. Um, what have you found is the hardest part of growing your organization as a whole, or any of the organizations that you've been part of?
Yeah, I've started a lot of organizations in my professional time, a lot. And it just, it depends on the space. It's interesting because applied behavior analysis therapy, ABA therapy, it's easier to get clients than it is to get workers, whether they be board certified behavior analysts or registered behavior technicians. There's more work than there is workers right now. So they're certainly in demand. So it depends on what industry you're trying to get more business. If it's in the ABA therapy space, getting the business is easy, but getting the people to work that business that you get is really the challenge. In the AI space, I would say the biggest challenge that we have is customer education, explaining to them exactly what we do, how our technology works, how it works with the literature and research in our field, how all that stuff combines. So I would say the biggest challenge we have is certainly customer education.
Absolutely. Well, and it's harder and harder to do that customer education when the tool is newer and newer, and AI is still very, very new for
Yep.
people.
Yep.
Yeah. So you sold your very first product at age 7. How has that kind of early hustle shifted the way that you approach scaling ventures like Introverbal?
Yeah, I should give some context around that. So, and that's great. You did your background research. So when I was a kid, I had an entrepreneurial mindset. I wanted money for the things that I wanted when I was 7. I wanted treats that I liked. I liked sweets. I liked toys. I wanted to go to the arcade. Yes, we had
Hot Wheels and
arcades when we were
Legos.
a kid. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. We had a really cool place called Hot Wheels something where people went to skate. This was like, I'm old. This was in like the 90s or something like that when I was a kid. But when I was 7 years old, I said this to my parents, and my parents said, well, if you can make money yourself, then we'll buy you the things that we want that you want. So I had this idea to, I lived in a condominium complex, and inside the condominium complex, inside the courtyard, we had those decorative rocks, like those rocks that are smooth rocks. And I grabbed the rocks and I thought, well, if I can make the rocks attractive, people may want to buy them. So I grabbed the rocks and I grabbed some markers and crayons and I designed the rocks and crayons. And I knew I couldn't design them and sell them at the same time. So I asked my best friend at the time, Robert, and I said, hey, would you help me do this? And I'll split the profit with you. And we were both 7 years old. And we just went out to the front, right in front of my patio, right by the main street in the condominium complex. And I was a kid. And so I just walked out into the street and I flagged down cars. They stopped, they pulled over. And I said, hey, would you like to buy this really cool rock that I designed? What I learned really quickly is, people want to support kids and they find kids doing something cute and clever, that they'll support it. And I sold each rock for 25 cents. And in one day, I made like $12.50 or something like that. And at one rock per sale, it was like 40 or 50 sales that day. And my parents were super supportive. They were very proud of me that I came up with something clever at such a young age. So I remember they took me to the arcade and then they took me to Toys R Us. Yes, Toys R Us existed back then. And they bought me some toys. And it was just a really great learning experience. I learned about inventory management. I learned about hiring people. I learned about profit sharing. I learned about finances, how things worked. I learned about sales. I learned probably the most important lesson there I learned was in sales. And I learned that the worst that can happen is people say no. Nobody got mad at me. Nobody got angry at me. Nobody cursed at me. They just said, no, I'm not interested. But for the most part, people supported it because, again, they saw a kid doing something clever and they wanted to support it.
Sales are easier when you're a cute kid, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. They're a lot harder when you're an adult, but the lesson stays. The worst they can say is no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Um, so throughout your career, you've also taught over 8,000 students. How has being in the classroom influenced your entrepreneurial mindset, especially in the ABA space?
Yeah, you become really good presenting, and you have to present. Sales is such an important skill set, and it's a broad skill set that includes presentation, and presentation involves preparation. It involves being able to think on the spot. So, yeah, I'll give a little bit of context as well to the number of students that you mentioned there. So, I taught the intro course at Florida International University for 12 years, and I never said no. Whenever the faculty administrators or the directors of the department asked me to teach a course, I always said yes. So sometimes I would be teaching 2 or 3 intro courses to behavior analysis in one semester. And in each course, we had huge auditorium classrooms. So it'd be like 250, 300 students or something like that. And you multiply that over a decade, and that's how you get to like 7 or 8,000 unique students. But, you know, when you teach an intro class, you get a lot of interesting questions, because people are being introduced to new material. So they're like, well, what's that? And they'll kind of ask wonky questions and it requires you to think on your feet. And then I was able to translate and generalize those skills from the classroom to business where people ask you about your products. And when you're convincing people to give you money so that you provide them with a product or service, some sort of value, you have to be able to think on your feet because they're going to ask you questions that you've never heard before. So number one, you need to know your material really, really well. You have to know what value you offer really well so that you can answer quickly. Latency from the time that they ask the question to the time you give your answer needs to be as short as possible because that communicates confidence. And people don't want to buy from people that are uncertain about their products or services, whether it's a company that you own or if you're working for AT&T selling cell phones, they want to hear that you are sure about what you're offering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they want to be sure that the thing that's important to them is something that you actually understand and something that you
Yeah,
actually know.
100%. I will say this. I think one of the most important lessons that I learned in entrepreneurship is that entrepreneurship is all about problem solving. So You're either bringing a product or service to the market that does not exist, or you're bringing a product or service to the market that already exists, but yours is better in some way. But one way or the other, you're solving a problem. And if you can't communicate to the customer that you're going to be able to solve their problem, they're not going to give you their money.
Absolutely. Because why should they? Why should they invest
Exactly.
in someone that you're not
Exactly.
sure will actually meet their need or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So with interverbal AI, you're fusing tech and behavior analysis. What is one myth that you wish people would move beyond or understand better when it comes to AI working inside of ABA?
So one of the biggest things that we did, one of our value propositions is that I'll give you two. Two of our value propositions are number one, our system is HIPAA compliant, and number two, our system connects directly to the research and literature and behavior analysis. So those are two things that, generally speaking, the other chat systems in AI don't offer. So this was a way for us to create a niche, to get into the AI space, create a niche and offer value, solve problems directly for the customers of our system. But in reference to one myth, I think the myth that I'd like to dispel is that AI is going to take everyone's jobs. I don't think that it will. It's going to eliminate some jobs, some repetitive task type jobs. But for the most part, AI, and I'd like to communicate this to behavior analysts, but AI and ABA should mean augmented intelligence, not artificial intelligence. So what we're trying to do at Introverbal AI is we're trying to make the job of the behavior analyst easier and allow them to focus a lot more on the human element of what they do. And I really can't think of a field or an industry that's more human than ABA. We work directly with other human beings on social skills, human behavior in general. So I think it's always going to require a human being. Just as the years roll on, we're going to be working with technology to help better the lives of the humans that we work with.
Absolutely. It makes complete sense. And I think that's the better way to think about AI in almost every industry, right? Is that it's augmenting, it's improving the work or it's speeding the work that actual humans are doing. Because why
Yeah,
use it otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say something really quickly that while these systems are really impressive, they still require someone to communicate to them what they should be doing. So I really feel like the two most important skill sets or skills for anyone in any industry moving forward are going to be knowing what you want and be able to ask for what you want. So and that basically falls under the umbrella of prompt engineering. So if you can pinpoint exactly what it is you want and you know how to ask for it correctly, then you can work with these systems really well. And ultimately, every single person in the world 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now is going to have the same job. It's going to be some version of prompt engineering because we're all going to be working with software systems or hardware systems if it's robotics or something like that. But as we interact with these systems, we need to be able to identify what it is that we need to solve our problems and how to ask for it.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Adam. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your insights and we appreciate the work that you're doing for the ABA space. I think groups like Interverbal are really moving us all forward, which I definitely appreciate.
Thank you so much for the invite, Tim. I really appreciate it. It was awesome talking to you today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.